Hammond, in my pro games, it's more likely than you think. Probably the most requested hero that people wanted us to take a look at was the one and only Hammond, rolling into our hearts with the lovely Ameng playing for the Chengdu Hunters. He has made this hero his own. He's been playing him pretty much non-stop throughout the entire Overwatch League season, and we're going to take a look at his footage. This is from the LA Gladiators vs Chengdu Hunters game, where the LA Gladiators did a lot of work on just trying to shut him down as much as possible. We're going to talk about some of the counters that they used, as well as some of the things that Ameng was doing that made the hero work, and also what was happening when the hero wasn't working. How did Ameng deal with that, and how did he get value out of the hero regardless? Naturally, the first thing we should talk about is what Hammond should be doing from moment to moment. What is Ameng doing with his time? Well, he's often just rolling around looking for opportunities to get pressure on various points. Here you can see that he's working with a Sombra and a Tracer to go and take the objective, and they successfully do it. Pulling pressure away from the front line and pulling people into a trap lets him sort of catch people off guard. He's using that mobility that Hammond has to get into places where the enemy can't easily deal with him, and then he's creating opportunities. Here you can see that Ameng is chasing him around. If Ameng is chasing him around, well, she's not watching the front, she's not putting walls up on the front lines. Now he's going to use that mobility, just go right across the map. He knows that they don't have a Roadhog, he knows that nothing's really going to catch him, and then he's going to use it to isolate a target for the rest of his team to come in. This is the key to Hammond, and this is the fundamental thing that I think a lot of people miss when they play Hammond on the ladder, which is that they go and they roll around, they be distracting and they be annoying, but they don't do that second step that Ameng is doing, which is setting up kills for the rest of his team. You can roll around behind the enemy lines as much as you like and shoot away, but as a support main myself, I can tell you, we just thank you for the ultimate charge. You're not really that threatening on your own. What you need to be doing is pulling people into traps or pulling people away from areas where they're needed. Then you can start creating opportunities. It's about creation of those opportunities where Ameng really shines. It's a very easy trap to fall into. Hammond is very mobile, very agile. He can go and do 100 things all on his own, but he can't really convert those things into actual meaningful progress. He doesn't really turn it into kills. Here you can see that the more agile parts of his team have actually moved to the point he can now go and join them where there's an isolated Lucio and he can try and fight them. He's using the knockback, very frequently uses that role. Don't worry, we'll talk about the role soon. And he goes and tries to push the Lucio out onto his own, but unfortunately a Tracer pops up and kills him because, hey, Tracer's actually pretty good against Hammond. And so if there's one thing I want you guys to take from this video, it's the mentality that doing things on your own isn't really like the objective of Hammond. It's to set people up to get other things done. You saw that he disengaged from the Tracer because, well, he can't fight the Tracer. There's no way that he can actually kill her. She can just recall, blink away, no problem. Instead, he doubles back, goes in to help the Sombra, pushes people out of the fight for a little while so his team can get into position. He's doing 1,000,001 things, but they're all in aid of helping the team. He got a good example where he gets a good pile drive onto the enemy team, and you're going to see this happen a few times, where he'll pile drive like 3 people, but if there's a support in there, there's no way that he can kill them on their own. He's going to go for another one here, I believe. There we go. They go up, there's a Moira there, there's a Lucio, they're all healed up in moments. The damage that Hammond does, if you go and play him in free-for-all, well, you're going to pile drive people and you might get a kill, but in the actual game itself, if there's a support there, yeah, you're not really going to convert. But the thing that Hammond does is he endures, he survives, and he sets people up for other kills. He's sort of enough DPS and enough range DPS to continually just push people out. Again, he's trying to push that Lucio away. He uses the roll. Again, we're going to get onto the roll in a moment. And yeah, he's just consistently making himself an annoyance and making his presence known, forcing out things and forcing out cooldowns, forcing out people to react to him, and forcing people to focus on him, drawing attention away then from the actual dangers such as, Jinmu on the Doomfist or Yang Xiaolong on the Sombra. There's these other threats that they need to deal with, but they've got to get rid of this Hammond first, or they've got to deal with being pile drived or booped away or pushed back, and they can't help the team, and as a result, well, they'll eventually flip the point. Spoiler, it takes them a while, but they do it. Any moment now, lads. Come on, there we go. Good lord, 2 CP, am I right? I'm right. So yeah, let's talk about what happens when Hammond doesn't end up working, right? He's going to go in here and basically LA Gladiators, they're all going to be together. And you can see that there's a Moira in there, there's a Brig in there, these supports that are putting out that AoE healing. I mentioned it before and I'll mention it again. If you're engaging a team that has a lot of healers around, you're not actually going to be doing too much. And slowly but surely, the Hammond's just sort of being a slight annoyance, but because they're all together and because they're all in this fight against Chengdu, it doesn't end up mattering. The Hammond is just so irrelevant because Moira just has to wave overhand once and everybody is healed. Chengdu are going to change up their attack in this clip. They're going to go with a little bit of a dive kill team, right? They've got Tracer, they've got Sombra, and they have Hammond. It's Tracer and Hammond on a mission. They spot out the Sombra and they push her off the health pack. They force her to use Translocator, they know where she is, and Ameng goes hunting down the Sombra. But once you end up in this position, if the Tracer doesn't come help or if the Sombra doesn't come help, it doesn't matter. Decay can just survive. Decay doesn't really have to be afraid here, and as a result, Sombra gets away. Gladiators commit to the fight, get a beauty of an EMP, and it just all falls to pieces. Here is the thing with Hammond. You have to have a very clear idea of what you want to achieve, whether you're trying to isolate their backline for a dive or pull them away into a certain part of the map. Just sort of rolling around and doing things doesn't actually turn into kills, doesn't, I use the word convert a lot, and what I mean is convert into kills and meaningful damage or meaningful objectives gained. You need to have purpose and structure. It's like the meme Tracer, right, in your team going, oh yeah, I'm being annoying, love, so yeah, I've really pulled the team around, and in reality, she's not really done anything. So we talked a little conceptual, right? Like, what should I be thinking about? What sort of things am I trying to do? What am I trying to achieve? You're trying to pull people around or put pressure on the objective or knock people and isolate people. But what do you actually do in a fight? That was one of the really interesting things that I was sort of very zeroed in on and focused on. Like, how do you actually fight as Hammond? And as I was watching Ameng play, I noticed something. Focus on the bottom right of the screen. I know there's a lot of action going on, but focus on the bottom right. Focus on that cord, what's it called, the grappling hook, right? Focus on that, because you'll notice something interesting, which is that he basically uses it almost every single time it's off cooldown. He will disengage from fights, by the way, very quickly as well. If the enemy has like a healer, for example, he will instantly pull away because he knows he can't beat them. But just watch as he fights, watch how often he will use the grapple just to get that burst of damage, that knockback and that hit of damage, and then he will go in for like a pile driver, and then he'll follow up by just trying to gun people down. He will then instantly try and roll, isolate a target. Here he's found Cure 4 on the Widowmaker. She doesn't have heals this time, so now he can just run them down. Spotted the Ana. He's going to try and isolate the Ana. Always a bit of a risky thing, but it's going to just slow down some healing. There's a sleep dart, and he's going to have a bit of a nap just to ride out the rest of this point. It's nice to wake up to a victory. Here on Iconval, we're going to see very similar. Something very cool he does here as well, which is he uses that third-person camera just to get a bit of extra scouting done. He can see a little bit better than most other heroes, so he's going to peek around corners and spot out where the enemy team is. Again, notice he doesn't go in for a super hard engage. He respects the Brigitte's stun. He knows that she has it. She's just used it. Okay, he's going to try and do something. Great boop there by Void, just going to stop Ameng going in and actually getting some damage done. But again, just looking for opportunities, looking for places to isolate people or to roll through to try and get something done. Going to play safe as well. Every time he dips down to about 50% hit points, he's going to just back away, get to his supports, get some healing on him, or pick up a health pack. Again, boops through the entire team, builds up a nice amount of ult charge. Doing so knocks them back, disrupts what they're doing, and does a nice little bit of damage. This pattern happens again and again and again. He respects the things that can stop him, so Sombras, Brigittas, for example, all those things that can boop him around or slow him down, and then he will just very agilely look for a target, perhaps what's being called by the DPS, perhaps what's being focused, and he will try and get onto them and finish them off as best as possible. Just using all these tools consistently and constantly. And this isn't like, if I was giving you a Widowmaker guide, I would just have to say, like, yeah, you have to aim, right? You have to be good at aiming. But this is all decision making. This is all stuff that you can actually incorporate in your play. And it's fairly simplistic when you just take a good look at what he's trying to do. It's just going to be much harder to do that when you're actually in game, right? The idea of using the roll as much as possible and aggressively to try and get boops, as long as there's nothing around that will crowd control you or stop you or slow you down. So, you've got to be careful about Mei, Sombra, Roadhog, all of these heroes you've got to respect a little bit. But if those options aren't available, then you can go nuts with it. You can just boot through the entire team. Being very flexible with your positioning, setting yourself up in places where it's harder for the enemies to reach you, and then just gunning down as best as possible. Waiting for your DPS to make call-outs as well, and waiting for your DPS to pick out opportunities. Notice he's not going in now, right, on the screen. His DPS aren't there. It's just all 6 of the enemy team. He wouldn't be doing anything if he went in at the moment. So he's just waiting for his moment, waiting for the Sombra to get into position to try and get something done. Sound barrier gets instantly forced out, and now, well, he can just take his time. He looks for a couple of boots, looks for a couple of roll kills, and he's just consistently making himself an annoyance, darting around the entire fight, darting around constantly, and again, backing out when the fight's going wrong. Something I see Hammonds do a lot on the ladder is they just stay in forever because they kind of can until a hack lands or a brig stun lands, and then they just end up dying. Instead, no, he's waiting, he's biding his time, waiting for his team, something you should always do. Remember, if a fight's going bad, take a moment, please, for the love of God, just take a moment and wait for your moment. Minefield and then drop, this is very important. I'm not really going to go into too much detail on the minefield, it's a fairly self-explanatory ability to use, but minefield, then drop. Trust me, it works a lot better than drop then minefield. It's just so much better. So you launch yourself above people, drop the minefield, and then pile drive down. It'll pull people into it. If you're a Lucio player, by the way, have tons of fun booping people into the mines. I certainly do. But again, notice, roll is on cooldown. He's shooting, moving, rolls through, pile drive, shoot. Always on cooldown, always using these abilities as aggressively as possible. Spots out, I think that was a hacked Decay there, a hacked Sombra, and gets the kill with the rest of his team. And now they can finally take this point. Flexibility is often one of the most discussed things in Overwatch, but when it comes to Hammond, if you're a main tank player especially, having a little bit of flexibility certainly doesn't hurt. Picture this, it's Hanamura. You are Hammond God Ameng. What hero do you pick at the start of your defense on Hanamura? You pick a Risa, because first point Hanamura, what is Hammond going to really do? It's a big open space, so lots of long sight lines so people can shoot him. If you're not going to roll into the back line on first point Hanamura, because the enemy team's back line is like a lot of very narrow choke points. If they have a Sombra or something that can just shut you down or hook you, it's going to be very difficult to survive there. You don't have much room to work with, and your team needs the barrier as well just to survive in that area. So yeah, he starts out on a Risa. After first point, however, he does swap off. But notice in the top left, notice LA Gladiators, the team lineup that they are running. There is a Sombra, there is a Roadhog, there is an Orisa. They have literally just swapped to this. And these are the idea of hard counters. Hammond has a number of hard counters in the game, right? A hard counter is something that will really shut down what you're trying to do in a big way. It just is very, very, very difficult to win in that situation. They have a massive advantage over you. So something like Brigitte versus Tracer is a good example of, hey, yeah, that's kind of a hard counter, because not only does Brigitte win 1-on-1s, she also puts armor on people, shuts down a lot of Tracer's DPS. Hammond has the same concept, right? He has hard counters in Sombra, in stuff that CCs him, and you're going to see here, oh, he gets a really, really good push, but Ana, Sleep Dart, combined with Hack, is going to cause enough problems for Ameng to eventually go down. And this is the thing I want to focus on, right, is that Hammond players will often say, oh, they just have a Roadhog, or oh, they just have this, or they just have the one thing. If they have the one thing, that's actually fine. Hammond can actually win against one of his counters if there's just one of them. But if there's 2 or 3 or more, he definitely can't. I have played so many games where there's been a Hammond main on the opposite side. If they have a Roadhog, or if we have a Roadhog, or if we have a Sombra or something and I'm playing Ana, then it's just so easy. I just land a Sleep Dart, they land the second CC follow-up, and we just get kills for days. Now, it's not impossible to actually win on hard counters if the enemy team is very focused on countering you. So LA Gladiators running this Mei Junkrat mix. We've seen this clip before, but you see how much they commit in trying to kill the Hammond, right? They commit the Blizzard, because Shore4's job here, a big part of Shore4's job here on that Mei, is to try and shut down the Hammond. Junkrat can cause a number of problems as well. The traps are, of course, a big issue, but also that massive burst damage and the amount of damage it does, he can do in general, is going to be enough to push them out. But it doesn't matter, because Chengdu, A, they built up a number of ultimates, so they have a lot of resources for the fight, and B, the rest of the team can dance around what LA Gladiators are running. They've committed so hard on countering this Hammond that, well, the rest of Chengdu, they play stuff that is flexible, agile, and can just move around. They get to the back line, they get themselves some early kills, and they get the point for themselves. I will say, though, that this is a pro-level team with pro-level coordination and pro-level DPS. If the enemy team is running things like Maze and Sombras and Roadhogs specifically to shut you down on Hammond, it might be time to swap off the Hammond. Just trust me on this one. It's very frustrating, as you know, everyone else on the team, when the Hammond goes in, gets hooked, slept, and then just killed every single time he tries to do anything. It's very annoying for you, no doubt, as well as the Hammond player, when the only thing you can do is dance around on the back line and basically be a worse version of Tracer, as you are forced to just use your guns for everything. There is a burden on main tanks to be somewhat flexible in your choices, and having that flexibility is honestly a real feather in your cap. In other words, don't be afraid to change every now and then. So as usual with these videos, we're going to try and bring everything together. Let me set the scene for you. Chengdu Hunters, they're trying to break their way out of spawn at the moment. You can see here he's managed to isolate the Winston with the help of his Sombra. Again, isolating targets with a dive buddy is a great way for Hammond to get some good results. But we're going to see a lot of the strengths here of 3-3 as well, or at least 3-3 variants, GOATS style comps. Basically, LA Gladiators running a Sombra variant, and you're going to see how enduring it is and how difficult it is for this team to clean up. Notably, Chengdu are also playing a lot around their pharmacy at the moment, so any resources that Ameng can tie up, stuff like hacks or anything that is, normally going to be used to try and counter the pharmacy, being used on him instead, is honestly good for the team, because that's really what they want to be playing around at the moment. They're getting a bit spawn camped at the moment, but meanwhile, actually, Jinmu is in the back line. He's dropped a barrage on the enemy team and has actually got himself a nice kill onto Shaz. Deleting one of the major healers is going to give the team a nice resource, but unfortunately the Sombra wasn't tied up enough, and as a result, Jinmu will end up going down. So Hammond can't quite do enough here just to tie up everything that the LA Gladiators have that's going to actually simultaneously deal with the threat of Ameng and deal with Jinmu at the same time. That Sombra Decay playing so well here, getting hacks where needed, and as a result shutting down Chengdu. Chengdu just going to take a moment to regroup. Ameng going to instantly go into the back line. Again, just look for problems, managed to find the Lucio, but the Lucio, he don't really give no hacks. This is the thing with Hammond, and once that Brigitte heal comes in, you notice he disengages the moment the Brig heal comes in. He knows he has to run away, he has to get out of there. Great EMP, but unfortunately doesn't get the Lucio, so Lucio comes out, heals everything. Now he's tying up Decay, but Jinmu's already dead, and the fight's starting to really, well, decay, unfortunately. Ameng, now the last gasp to stay on the point, and, well, LA Gladiators, to their credit, they do the intelligent thing. It's overtime at the moment. Chengdu aren't going anywhere. The hamster has to stay on the point. They go, they clean up the rest of the team, and then they're just going to let them push the payload just a little bit longer, come back and clean up the rest of the fight. Trust me, it takes them a little while to clean it up because these are two relatively tanky and agile comps, but LA Gladiators do eventually win this one, just because that 3-3 comp, well, that, I guess, 3-2-1 comp, I guess, but it's a GOAT style comp, guys. Don't finagle the details. There's so much staying power, it's so difficult to finish this one off, and especially when Jinmu dies, it just becomes impossible. Alright guys, thank you for watching to the end. This has been a look at Ameng playing on the Hammond. He had a really rough series, so it's kind of tough to sort of find all the victories that he could celebrate. We've sort of covered most of the big fights where he had a real massive victory impact, and then a number of fights where perhaps it wasn't quite as strong. Don't forget guys to hit the subscribe button if you do want more Unit Lost content, and ding the bell as well if you want notifications. It also just helps you get notified. YouTube's kind of a weird platform, but it just helps you get it into your sub feed as well. Otherwise, I've been Josh, One Voice Amongst Many. You can find me on Twitter at @one_amongst many. You can find me on Twitch as well at twitch.tv/oneamongstmanytv. We are currently grinding through Masters as a support main. It's been an adventure, to say the least. And as always, let us know what hero you want us to look at next. Hopefully, I'm hoping Eileen still plays that Doomfist, because I think we can get some real good footage out of that one. Alright guys, thanks for watching to the end. I'll see you next time. Toodles.